Mm. Hi, hello, Jorge.
Hello. Well,
Hi.
it has been a very hectic time.
Yeah, what a
We
lovely picture of yours and a
yes.
painting.
But nevertheless, it's very encouraging. You know, I'm working with Marc-André in
Ah,
Unibrow,
yeah.
a
Yes.
very interesting project, and we hope to launch it in the very near future. It's about the principles of the methodology of due diligence in culture. I think
Oh, fantastic.
this is a very challenging project, but nevertheless, it's quite important to try
Indeed.
to introduce in the art market certainty. That's what it's about. And well, we have already several experiences, such as, in the US, we have this in the Obama administration. We do have this important act to try to hinder, following the UNO Security Council mandate, to try to ban to hinder illicit trafficking coming from the Middle East. And we have a 2016 German legislation following also the UNO Security Council. And for the first time in the continent, the European continent, has been introduced the due diligence notion. So I think that the time is come to try to tackle this issue, and let us see if we could achieve it in UNIVA. It is a private law issue, and as such, UNIVA is legitimate to try to tackle this kind of problems. And let's see if we could how far we can go. That is one of the main uh, um, targets. I mean, we are starting. This is a starting point, but we more or less we uh, already are with a very good mood and with a lot of enthusiasm to try to go
But please
forward.
tell me, is it conceived as a similar document as UNESCO UNIDROIT model provision on state ownership, or
No,
it's
it is
a
only no
different
because
kind
it
of
is
a?
a no, it is only meant for UNIDRA. Why so?
Okay, okay.
Well,
So only under auspices of the UNIDROIT. Okay.
because because it is a private law issue,
Yeah, yeah,
and
I know, I know.
that is why I mean UNESCO is not comfortable with this kind of for
Yeah,
issues
yeah, I can imagine.
of,
Uh-huh.
of private law. But nevertheless, I mean, in the frame of the UNIDROIT Convention, it is crucial, more or less, to try to go forward. As you might well know, UNIDROIT was the first international instrument to
Of
introduce
course, it's standard setting the Article 4 and the and the due diligence standards. Sure,
yes,
and then it was taken to the EU Directive 2014/60 in terms of the return of cultural goods. So yeah, that's undisputed. So it's congratulations on this very interesting project, and I believe that Mark is a perfect colleague to contribute to this. Project as in Geneva. As far as I remember, they do have this project responsible art market where they focus on red flags for art market and while accessing entering a contract.
yeah,
So
yeah. That's what. Well, we have to move forward. And well, Onidra. has the tools to try to
Mm-hmm.
develop such kind of projects. And well, it is, of course, it is very challenging. It is not easy to try to reconcile um, common law legal system and the continental one. It is not easy because, well, we do have still in the continent this notion of good faith, and well, and what the UNIDRA has uh, go a little more farther and to try to introduce in the international law the notion of due diligence. And I think little by little, step by step, due diligence has starting to be rooted in the art market mm,
Yes, yes, you are
uh,
right,
uh,
especially
uh,
with the AML, with the anti-money laundering system and the new directives within the EU. So definitely it's all connected, but for sure anti-money laundering system helps to speed up the process of introducing due diligence into soft law, but also in national legislations from
yeah.
from how I see it from the Polish angle.
Yes, and well, let us see how far we can go. It is not going well. I mean, we have to be more. I would say first of all, you know the methodology how UNIDRA works. First, we have to we install already a study group uh, to try to find out uh, how can we develop these kind of issues in private law, and then well to try to 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 see if there is enough interest in the international community, uh, 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 mm, if there is enough interest to go forward. It is it's going to be as old diplomatic projects. They have their own pace and their own time, their own maturity time. So it takes time. It takes a lot of time, and then to try to seek a minimum consensus and to try to look if we have enough support of the international community and so forth. I mean, it's a long way to go. That's what it's about. We have to be very we have to bear in mind that it's a long way to go forward.
I only
That,
wonder whether this project should be also a part of the working program or work program of the UNIDROIT, so that it has because the last project on collections it was like status 1, status 4. So whether it will be introduced to the mandate of the UNIDROIT during the next governing council session or executive council session or it will be kind of a satellite project.
yes,
But it would be definitely better to have it in the UNIDROIT documents and confirming the fact.
yeah. I do agree with you completely. And that's why, well, we try to try to introduce to the governing council again what we have done until now, and to submit to the governing council what if there is enough interest of the council,
Mm.
try to push it again, and we hope for the best. We have done a very
Yes, we have our fingers crossed, and please count on us if anything is needed. I think that both Anna and me, we are the UNIDROIT correspondents for our countries, respective countries. So if you need some kind of as a group, some kind of a contribution, we are happy to contribute.
Okay, you're very kind, and of course, all kind of suggestions and fresh ideas are more than welcome. I mean, it's you know how we work, and we are very open-minded, and of course, to try to pay attention to every single suggestion that could be made in this brand new field. I mean, but I'm so happy that your fair reaction is a positive one.
Oh,
No?
yeah, sure, sure.
Mhm. Well, let us see. I mean, you know, I am very enthusiastic about
Yeah,
this kind of projects and well, the culture is and the culture law is a bottomless pit. Uh,
yeah.
yes,
Yes,
it is,
our
and
team from the our team from the UNESCO Chair on Cultural Property Law. I think it was back in 2018. We have prepared a document on due diligence and cooperation with art market for the 1970 UNESCO Convention Subsidiary Committee meeting. I know how important it is to build all those bridges with all stakeholders interested, like with the art market actors, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
and we are going to be very open-minded, be sure about it, and of course to try to listen to all kinds of voices that are very welcome because we have to enrich the discussion. In the first steps, it's crucial, more or less, to try to find out if uh, where is the common ground in the different approaches, and then to try to well to have to draft a starting project and that they could more or less resume the different approaches that we have on the table. This is the first challenge, and well, we'll work on it, and we will let you know in due time what we have done until now, and of course to try to seek more support of the international community, and well, let us not lose the enthusiasm that we have now.
Yeah. I see that we are 9 sharp, I believe, or even
Yes, yes. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. I don't know what are the.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jorge.
Good morning. It's
good
Good morning,
morning.
Anita.
it is a great pleasure to have you, all of you, in this in this Zoom session. I mean, we are
Yes,
very honored and very happy to try to interact in this very interesting topic.
yes. I think we can start. I don't know why my video is not functioning.
Active. I have the same. I have the same.
You have the same. It
I
is
have the
saying.
same. I cannot go
Sorry.
because the host
It
has
is saying
stopped
you cannot
this
start your video
the
because the
video.
host has stopped it. Who is the
Yes,
host?
we are checking at the moment with the settings. Hopefully, it will be solved very soon.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. And I want to really say how much here at the Arab Regional Center for World Heritage, we have been pleased with the initiative from Professor Anna Filippa Abdoria concerning this UNITWIN network on culture in emergency situations. As you can imagine, this is a subject that is followed since many years by UNESCO headquarters, and here we can, of course, listen to my colleague and friend Krista Picat, with whom I worked for also quite a long time on
Sorry, excuse me,
topics
Dr.
related.
Munir, the video option is now open.
Okay. Yes, good.
Oh,
So
good
it's
to see
better
you.
now that we see each other. Krista, good morning. Jorge, good morning. Professor Matthias.
Morning.
Good morning.
Anna, I don't know if it's morning or night in Australia.
Evening. I've got a virtual screen.
Oh my
Good to
goodness,
see
you are
you.
courageous. So thank you, Anna, again for this initiative and for proposing that as a team we can start this first webinar discussing, I think, first of all the situation of emergency that we are faced with, and how culture and education can provide a reply and bring the elements of rehabilitation, reconstruction, restoration at different level, of course. I was listening to the discussion between Alicia and Jorge just before the beginning of this seminar about the legal aspect, which is, of course, one of the very, very important topic. I just mentioned that last week we had here in Bahrain at the Arab Regional Center and at the Bahrain Authority for Culture and Antiquities, 2-day seminar organized by the Coalition Antiquities about the implementation of 1970 Convention, but also I introduced a topic that sometimes we are speaking about the 1970 Convention, but we are forgetting the UNIDROIT Convention. And I think this is also one aspect, the legal aspect, and then we can discuss the more concrete aspects that, as you know, Krista will certainly develop what we are. In fact, we are actually having 3 wars going on, one in Ukraine, one in Sudan, one in Gaza. And all these wars are unfortunately having a very negative impact on cultural heritage, whether it is the tangible heritage, monuments, sites, the museum, but also the objects. Many experts are also talking about the impact on the intangible cultural heritage because of the displacement of population. One of our colleagues from Sudan spoke about the displacement of 6 million people. This has a very great impact on cultural heritage. So this is just the introduction to explain that we are working within the UNESCO contribution to peace and security in promoting collaboration and coordination. We know that at the moment, unfortunately, there are many international bodies, whether governmental or non-governmental, dealing with situation of crisis and dealing with programs and contribution to rehabilitation, restoration, and to give life again. And this meeting will certainly open also some windows. So we are having, for this 1 hour, it's very short, we are having the following panelists. Madame Krista Picat, Director, Culture and Emergency Entity at the Culture Sector at UNESCO. Sheikh Ibrahim Al Khalifa, Deputy Director of the Arab Regional Center for World Heritage based in Bahrain. Dr. Alicia Jagielska-Burduk, UNESCO Chair in Cultural Property Law, OPOL. Dr. Jorge Sanchez Cordero, Director of the Mexican Center for Uniform Law, Notario. Professor Sabine Schorlemer, African Institute for International Law. And, of course, the Professor Anna Filipa Biodrak, who was, in fact, initiating this contribution and this meeting. I think that for all of you, you can speak for about 5 to 6 minutes each, and then we can probably make a sort of first conclusion of the debate. And I want to start giving the floor to my colleague Krista. Krista, you can start this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Munir, and dear colleagues, very, very pleased to be with you this morning. Greetings from very grey Paris. I hope that those of you who are in Abu Dhabi, the weather is better. Thanks for inviting and actually initiating this discussion. I think it's very important, also in the context of the Abu Dhabi conference that UNESCO is organizing in Abu Dhabi on education and culture. I think it would be perhaps good for me to start with kind of wider context as to why UNESCO thinks that culture and education matters in situations of emergencies. As Munir already pointed out, UNESCO has been engaging in situations of emergencies for many decades. Our first UNESCO convention, the 1954 Hague Convention, is actually about cultural properties in armed conflict. So we can say that UNESCO has been concerned about the preservation and promotion of culture and safeguarding culture in situations of emergencies, armed conflicts, but now, of course, also natural hazards. Actually since 70 years since we started developing our normative framework for culture in the wake of the Second World War. Of course, now we have a comprehensive normative framework looking at different aspects of culture that sort of sets the legal frame for our action, but also sets the international standards for member states who ratify the conventions, and then of course introduce measures for the protection and safeguarding of their cultural heritage. And that's why it's not, of course, surprising that when we speak about UNESCO's engagement in situations of emergencies, we look at the culture sector in a comprehensive manner. So it's not only about tangible heritage, we are not only concerned about the World Heritage Sites, but we're also very much concerned about communities. This is where the rights aspect comes in, because culture and education are actually human rights. We also have in the Sustainable Development Goals, we have a specific goal, of course, everybody knows that, SDG 4, that concerns education. And within this goal, SDG 4.7 is specifically referring to culture of peace, but also the importance for us to make sure that students have the knowledge and skills about the diversity of culture that exists in the world. And that's why, of course, UNESCO's mandate, given that we are both mandated to promote education and culture, of course, it's at the heart of our mandate. And that's why we also, when we engage in the situations of emergencies, we not only work on education, but also we see where the synergies lie. And I would like to mention perhaps a couple before I pass the floor back to you, Munir, to say that, of course, I mentioned that education and culture are both human rights, so it's important that we make sure that there is a continuity for the communities in terms of that they have access to education, but they also have access to culture in situations of emergencies. We have actually supported artists in situations of emergencies so that they can still play the role of providing this platform and mobilizing this discussion about issues that are of importance to the communities in situations of emergencies. But we also, of course, work with cultural professionals to make sure that they have the capacities, that they have the education and skills to protect culture in situations of emergencies. And then we also work more and more with the educational specialists to make sure that education actually vehicles the necessary information about intangible cultural heritage. For instance, in Ukraine, we have integrated the elements of cultural heritage of Ukraine in the school curricula, also for the Ukrainians who have needed to flee the country and are studying outside of Ukraine, so that they can take pride of their culture and they know their culture. But for instance, in Koker World Heritage Site in Cambodia, we also worked with the education system to make sure that we can sensitize students about the dangers of looting, because this was very widespread in Cambodia, and Munir, of course, knows that context very well. And then perhaps the third example I wanted to give is also the work we've done in Chad, where we used culture as a means of resilience but also reconciliation in the aftermath of the atrocities that happened in the country. And we really targeted some segments of communities, young people, but also people who had experienced violence, and we worked with them through culture, through cultural projects in the arts and cinema and dance. So I think that there are many synergies between these two sectors, and that are of particular relevance also to the situations of emergencies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Krista, for this very broad presentation. And we are, of course, we will return at the end to, just make some keywords in our conclusion in order to follow what you have expressed in your presentation. Now I give the floor to my colleague and friend, Sheikh Ibrahim Al Khalifa, the Deputy Director of the Arab Regional Center for World Heritage in Bahrain.
Thank you, Dr. Munir.
Bahrain, you have the floor.
Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for this presentation. I think this is a great opportunity to not only introduce the UNESCO UNITWIN network, but also to look at the challenges, opportunities to collaborate on several important aspects related to emergencies of culture. I think, unfortunately, we are speaking from the most vulnerable region in the world in terms of cultural heritage. We have seen just last year 2 natural disasters, earthquakes in Marrakesh, in Syria, flooding in Libya, flooding in Sudan, in Yemen, conflict in Gaza. So I think it's clear for us that the aspect of culture and emergencies and response to it is vital. It's very important, and especially for our region. I think the number of World Heritage Sites on the list in danger is the highest in the Arab region as well. So I think those are just all indicators on the importance of international collaboration in terms of assessing damages, supporting member states, because often I think culture is always on the third or fourth important kind of intervention areas. I think humanitarian, education, all comes before culture in some of those situations. So I think for us working in that field, it is very important to make sure that we have enough measures in place to respond to those needs swiftly, but as well effectively. And I would like to maybe point out some of the steps that are often undertaken in those situations, where we had an experience in Beirut, for example, after the Beirut blast, where we worked with the UNESCO office in Beirut and with the UNESCO headquarters. First of all, having a kind of a pre-disaster documentation, or what we call baseline survey on what are the most important historical buildings in the historic cities that are important for the local communities, and to make sure that we don't exclude any buildings, and then to move into documenting and evaluating the disaster itself, and to see the impact that it had on the area, as well to measuring the economic values of those buildings, and what is kind of the economic needs on the important short term, but as well long term plan, as well looking into the impacts of potential disasters in the short term, and to make sure that there is no and the area is both safe and sound, and we are able to conduct either field missions or to have some field work going on, or we should maybe wait a little bit longer. I think this has happened in a number of places where interventions was not able to be done swiftly because the area was still unsafe. I think, and the last point, which is very important, was looking into the recovery strategy. And here I think where UNESCO comes and has a large role to play in terms of making sure the strategy in place considers not only the buildings, but also the human factor, and to make sure that local communities are a big part of it. I think the sense of ownership for local communities is immense, and it's really vital to make sure that they are part of it, that we consider the human value, consider the human life as an important integral part of the recovery phase. I think also establishing recovery coordination mechanisms to make sure that we have all stakeholders in place to respond and to be able to communicate on both emergency level, but as well during the planning and the kind of implementation period. I think always the biggest challenge is financing. We have seen that in several places where financing has been an issue. We are grateful that the Alif Foundation has been established in the last few years. It has been a great, I think, role and tool to respond swiftly to some of those challenges, especially in Iraq, in Yemen, and other places as well. So I think it is important to make sure that we have a mapping of potential donors and funders that will be able to intervene both on the technical level, but as well as an advisory, and also to make sure that the funds are available swiftly to use. I think the Unit-Twin network here is very important to focus on the academic background, to make sure that we have enough research, studies, case studies. We often, in emergencies, we don't document properly, I think, in some cases. And because we are busy in terms of responding, and I think we overlook the importance of research and documentation. So I think this is just in a nutshell, just some of my views on the situation both in the Arab region, but as well internationally, and to make sure that we have an inclusive approach. I think that is very important, that no one is excluded, and to make sure that we learn from other examples. I think from we have seen in Beirut, but as well in the past in Bosnia and Cambodia and other places. I think it's very important to have a baseline to support in our initiatives.
Thank you, Sheikh Ibrahim, for this very clear presentation and a number of important points. As I said, following Krista, I think we are going to have a number of key points that we will have to just develop as a kind of conclusion and opening of action after this first meeting. Now I'd like to give the floor to my colleague also and friend, Dr. Alicia. You have the floor.
Thank you, Munir. Thank you. Welcome all. It's a great pleasure to have a launch of the project today. We're as a side event of the conference. First of all, I would like to thank Krista Pikat because she inspired us to start it all during the 30th anniversary of the UNESCO Chairs and Unit-Twin program in 2022 in November in Paris, because she organized the workshop Culture in Emergencies. And look, here we are, 8th February 2024, all founding members, founding fathers, founding mothers. So it's a great pleasure. And Krista, look, we are implementing, putting into life what you have asked us to. So it's and we count on your support and future cooperation. So the aim of our meeting is to somehow bridge and link our mission, our mandate of the Unit-Twin with culture and arts education, because it's a side event of this intergovernmental meeting. I believe that all those side events are very important in terms of bringing together all stakeholders. So that is why organizers ask us to start and organize our meeting before the conference that will start next week, so that we kind of give the food for thought, if we may. The document was consulted with teachers, with different stakeholders, and there were 2 rounds of consultations with member states. What I would like to add, where we are in this document, there is the special point on engaging all networks, where especially UNESCO chairs, that is also UniTwin networks and ASP.NET schools are mentioned. So it is also visible in the subtitle of the conference, of the general statement, "Let's champion culture and arts education for jobs, innovation and resilience." The resilience keyword appeared on several occasions today, and it's only 26th minute of our meeting. When it comes to the good practices, I would like to add to the list that Krista mentioned, the already existing vehicle, UNESCO Campus, like we did for illicit traffic. We can use it as a part of culture and arts education, definitely, and we've already done it within the 1970 UNESCO Convention, the same as the Foundation ALF mandate and ICH. Just a brief example from the Polish-Ukrainian cooperation. In Poland, we introduced a special classes scenario, bridging intangible cultural heritage from Ukraine and Poland. So it's not only about focusing on one ICH, but here with the moving all of those people, displaced people, it's somehow to go and reach out to the special target group, children, teens, teenagers, how to join together. And here we are close to the cultural rights and access to culture and all the spectrum of the diversity and intercultural dialogue. Once more, I would like to thank you, because we have more than 50 members and participants. So it's a great pleasure. Thank you once more.
Thank you so much, Alicia, and congratulations for already results that you have got. This is important also to see that we are not having only complaints, difficulties, crises, but we have also some results and some good practices that we should share and develop. The next speaker is my colleague and friend, Dr. Jorge. Bienvenido da Mexico. Jorge, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you so
A
very
te la
much.
palabra.
Thank you so very much. Can you hear me well?
Yes,
Okay. Yeah.
we hear you
Okay.
very
Well,
well.
I would like to express first of all my gratitude to the Arab Regional Center for World Heritage and to Anna and my old friend Munir. And for Madame Krista Picard for this kind invitation. Thank you very much to all of you. I would like to introduce the most relevant cultural emergencies in the Latin America region and how we have tackled them to give certain answers to these highly risky situations. The most relevant emergencies are located in Southeast Mexico, my country, Central America, and in Peru, just to mention some of them. First, organized crime is one of the main problems to the effect that, to state the obvious, the illicit trafficking is very productive. B, illicit trafficking is an excellent tool for laundering money. How to tackle these very delicate situations? First, the Mexican government has deployed the National Guard to protect the most important archaeological sites, but it is impossible to protect them all. Two, we have encouraged the local communities. That's quite important. We have encouraged the local communities to be aware of the damages caused by them by these lootings, Without the permanent participation of them, it would be impossible to hinder the destruction. The more these communities are involved, the better. This is just a starting point. It will take time before we can see any results. 3, in the financial sector, the Mexican government has taken severe measures to hinder money laundering. Nevertheless, the cash payments in foreign currency have become a real problem. The payment method is being employed by the middlemen constantly. Now I'm moving to South America, Peru. In Peru, the destruction of the Pachamama, meaning Mother Earth, and the rainforest has become a common challenge. To face the destruction of the environment and cultural shrines, mostly indigenous, the communities have appealed to the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights and to the Inter-American Court of Human Rights to avoid these damages. The main problem is the time that it takes to enforce the adjudications of both regional bodies. And for most, these adjudications condemn the national states, not the oil and mining corporations, to pay the compensations. In sum, in our region, we're facing cultural emergencies, severe cultural emergencies, that most urgently must be addressed. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Jorge. This is very important also to listen to another region of the world, because, of course, since we are more into Europe or Mediterranean area, we sometimes have the impression that in Latin America everything is going well. But you know, with your presentation, I think we have to be reminded about what is happening in terms of looting of archaeological sites, and we know how much our colleagues are involved, whether Mexico, whether Peru, all these very, very important places where time to time we see that they are looting, they are smuggling of objects and destruction. So it's important, you know, and it will be the same, in fact, in the next speaker. In my list, I have Professor Sabine Schormeler, but I think it's Professor Matthias who is going to speak on this topic and on one continent, on Africa as a whole. Professor Dr. Matthias, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me in this meeting. The first thing I would like to underline is you started saying that there are 3 wars going on now. It's more than 3. There is a war in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, and no one is talking about it, and it's not giving coverage, same coverage as the other wars, and yet millions of people have died since 1996, and no one is talking about it, and a lot is getting destroyed, and I think this matter has to be addressed. I will not dwell on this, of course, it was just a reminder. Now, on behalf of the African Institute of International Law, I would like the audience to understand that this institute was created to contribute to the consolidation of the rule of law in Africa and a rules-based Pan-African integration through the promotion, teaching, and dissemination of international law, African Union law, and the public law of Africa in the continent. Now, this institute can play a crucial role in supporting the objectives of the Unitwine Network on Culture in Emergencies, especially by leveraging its expertise, resources, and strategic partnerships. I will very briefly give you a few details on how this institute involvement can contribute to the network's goals. In the first place, I will mention capacity building and education, which is needed. And the Institute has a proven track record in capacity building initiatives related to international law and African Union law. I'm talking about international law because this UNESCO initiative is based on international legal documents. So through its educational and training programs, the African Institute can equip stakeholders involved in culture in emergencies with the necessary legal knowledge and skills. This includes judges, legal practitioners, government officials, and scholars, among others. By providing specialized training on legal frameworks relevant to cultural protection during emergencies, the Institute can enhance the capacity of individuals and institutions to respond effectively to cultural crises. Secondly, research and expertise is also relevant. And as a dedicated institution for advanced research in international law and African Union law, the Institute can contribute valuable insights and expertise to this Unitwine network. The Institute can engage in research activities focused on the role of culture, cultural heritage, and cultural diversity in emergencies, aligning with the network's objectives to promote peace, human rights, and sustainable development. By conducting research on legal and non-legal tools for cultural protection, the Institute can inform evidence-based approaches to emergency response and recovery efforts. And in the third place, I would mention think tank and policy support. The Institute serves as a think tank on international legal issues for African states and regional organizations. In the context of cultural emergencies, the Institute can provide policy support and strategic advice to relevant stakeholders. This may include analyzing existing legal frameworks, identifying gaps in protection mechanisms, and recommending policy reforms or best practices. By facilitating dialogue and collaboration among policymakers, the Institute can contribute to the development of comprehensive strategies for safeguarding cultural heritage and promoting cultural resilience in emergency situations. Lastly, I mentioned also networking and collaboration. The Institute's extensive network of associate faculties of law in African universities and partnerships with regional organizations positions it as a valuable collaborator within the Unitwine network. the Institute can facilitate multi-stakeholder engagement and knowledge exchange among international, regional, national, and local institutions working on culture in emergencies. Through joint initiatives, workshops, and conferences, the Institute can foster synergies and cooperation to address common challenges and achieve shared objectives in cultural protection and emergency response. In summary, Mr. Chair, the African Institute of International Law is well equipped to support the UNESCO UNITWIN network on culture in emergencies through its expertise in capacity building, research, policy support, and networking. By leveraging its institutional resources and partnerships, the Institute can contribute significantly to advancing the protection and promotion of culture during times of crisis, ultimately fostering peace, human rights, and sustainable development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to you, Professor Dr. Matthias. You are right. We didn't mention that also Africa is suffering from a number of crises, because I followed personally the situation in Mali, which continues, unfortunately. And I listened to the last news about the borders between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. Yes, also Africa is in need for advice, for support. And I think what you told us with your institute and the importance of the legal input that you are able to bring to UNITWIN, I think is very important, that it should be noted in our conclusion. Now, I would like to give the floor to the initiator, in fact, of this meeting and of this idea to join efforts under the UNITWIN, Professor Anna Filipa-Doriak. At this occasion, I want to say that we lost 2 days ago one very good friend and very great lawyer, Professor Francesco Francioni, who was president of the World Heritage Committee and also the lawyer who worked with us at the moment where we had the destruction of the Buddha of Bamiyan. If you remember, he wrote a very important article. And we presented also in 2003 a recommendation about the intentional destruction of cultural heritage, which is an addition to the second protocol of the 1954 convention. So with and really I was working with Francesco also in when he was in Florence at the European Center for Law, when I was at ICROM. So really for us, we consider that it's a big loss among the lawyers dealing especially on cultural heritage. And I would like to, I wrote under your advice, Professor Anna, to his wife, and she replied to me saying that he was not very well, but he was happy to know that we were thinking about him. So now we can only say peace upon him. Thank you, Professor Anna. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bushnaki, and thank you for mentioning the contribution of Francesco Francioni. And I know in many ways he planted seeds, many seeds, both in relation to his ideas and his learning, but also the people that he taught as a teacher. And that's an essential mandate that we have, and hopefully we will be maybe a fraction as successful as he was. So thank you for that acknowledgement of the passing of our dear colleague and teacher. I'm grateful both to Sheikh Al Khalif and also Dr. Bushnaki from the Arab Regional Centre for World Heritage in hosting and chairing this official side event on behalf of the new UNESCO UniTwin Network on Culture in Emergencies. I suspect there were many times when I approached them and they have been the most gracious, and given such a short time period. I'm also grateful to the colleagues that form part of this network in taking up the call and those that have not been able to, and a special thanks to our co-coordinator, Professor Alicia Jagaleska-Buruk. It was actually and our focal point who planted the seed, speaking of planting the seeds for this side event, to take the opportunity in the run-up to the World Conference. So thank you very much, Alicia. But also thank you to Professor Madat Picard for taking the time. We know that you're very busy in taking part in this event, and we look forward to working with you and your team and contributing to your important work. The theme of our webinar is Culture and Arts Education Emergencies. It and its objectives of this UniTwin overlap with the important themes and objectives encapsulated in the UNESCO framework for culture and arts education, which will be discussed next week, and we hope it will be adopted. We know that culture and arts and education are especially affected during times of emergency, be they organised violence like armed conflict or organised crime, as Jorge mentioned, and also disaster and climate change. We also know that culture, arts and education are vital to human resilience in such crises, post-conflict and post-disaster reconstruction. This has been recognised by the Sustainable Development Goals, the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, and successive UN peace-building efforts in every part of the globe, as Professor Matthias has mentioned, and also Professor Bushnaki. For these reasons, the draft guiding principles, objectives and strategic goals of the draft framework on culture and arts education, the 2023 UNESCO recommendation on education for peace, and the UNESCO Multicult declarations of 1982, and the last one in 2022, which I know Jorge was instrumental in pushing through, and thank you very much for that, Jorge. And the operationalization will be integral to the work of this new UNESCO UniTwin network on culture and emergencies. The network and our foundation partners, research, training and capacity building, and engagement and public awareness necessarily align with the implementation of the modalities proposed by the draft framework. Speaking on my own behalf, the UNESCO Chair in International Law and Cultural Heritage as a co-coordinator and co-host, and my colleagues at Jambana Institute for Indigenous Education Research at UTS as a foundation partner, look forward to working towards the implementation of this important framework. And thank you very much for this platform to all of my colleagues and those listening in. And I'm more than happy to provide examples in our discussions. Thank you, Dr. Bushnaki.
Thank you so much, Professor Anna. Again, I want to say that we were so pleased to have your proposal. Your initiative was very well received, and you can see that even today with this short notice, we have really strong days to discuss the situation of the role of education, art, and the approach towards the conflicts, but also the situation of natural catastrophe. So, because we have the chance to have you, to have Professor Matthias, to have Alicia more and Jorge more involved in the legislative aspect, I think this is very important to consider the importance of presenting and developing and sensitizing about the laws and regulations concerning cultural heritage, concerning the protection of cultural heritage, and see, when I was in UNESCO, we have seen that unfortunately the 1954 convention was not applicable. I joined UNESCO in the 80s, and we couldn't make an application directly by UNESCO. And that's why we worked on the second protocol of 1999. But even with the second protocol, maybe we have to continue more sensitization, more raising awareness. I think this is one aspect, and Professor Matthias was bringing already some concrete proposal of training, capacity building, and strengthening the legal framework. We know in our experience, and Krista was with me for many years, that some of the conflicts are not conflicts between states, and are internal conflicts. They are done by terrorist groups. They are done by entities that you cannot discuss with. We had, as you remember, the terrible situation of the announcement of this destruction of the Buddha of Bamiyan. You know that I did everything possible with my colleagues at UNESCO, and unfortunately, because it was not an entity, the Taliban, able to take into account the commitment of what exists in the conventions, 54, 70, 2001 for the underwater cultural heritage. So I don't want to make a conclusion, but I want to say that you have established a number of points that I noted, you know. First of all, necessary collaboration. We are many institutions. I give you one example. Last week, we were preparing our next board meeting where Mr. Lazar Erundu, the director of the World Heritage Center, will be with us here in Bahrain. And among the programs that we are suggesting is a seminar between African experts and Arab experts on the situation of World Heritage. So it's really in the right direction that you have given us today, Professor Matthias. The second element is the role of local communities.
We have a question from the audience, Dr. Munir, if maybe we can.
Yes.
There is a question from Miss Lisa Gabriel. She's saying that I do understand losing tangible cultural heritage during wars. Could any of the professors explain more about losing the intangible one in more details? Also, what role should artists and archaeologists play during wars and how? More examples, if you would, please.
Thank you, Sheikh Ibrahim. Who wants to reply to this very important question about intent? I mentioned intangible heritage in the beginning, notably, and we saw it, for example, in Mali, during the ruling by the extremists of the city of Tombouctou, music was forbidden, films were forbidden, I mean, it was not only the mausoleums which were destroyed and buildings which were touched by those extremists, but also the intangible heritage. And I spoke with one of my colleagues from Sudan, who was also warning me about not only what is happening for the museum in Khartoum, what is happening in some archaeological sites, but also in the local traditions and all what is known by UNESCO as intangible cultural heritage. So I think we can reply to the question in saying that this aspect of training and capacity building should be encompassing not only the tangible and the movable and immovable heritage, but also intangible heritage. We had an experience after the fall of the Taliban in Afghanistan, where we brought the musicians, women at UNESCO, you remember, Krista, just to show that the role of women in the society and the local communities, because they are the bearer of all the oral traditions, all the music, traditional music, and so on. So we cannot enter now into detail, but we can reply, yes. The question is absolutely valid. And in addition to all what has been said by all of you, we have to take into account consideration the intangible, the immovable, the movable. So it is in the same definition of cultural heritage in the legal documents, whether in 54, whether in 72, etc. So the time is running. Do you want to make any proposal? You want to say something after listening to or Anna, Professor Anna?
Just very quickly, I think it's a very important point, and it's also timely given what we're talking about, that it's culture and arts education. I think quite often people think about it as only the physical, whereas, as you mentioned, the women and the oral traditions, that is given over by people and teachers and so forth in particular settings. So, and they are being attacked, whether it be in universities or schools or libraries, and in those settings where culture is transmitted. And I think that's why the work of our group, and particularly the conference theme next week, is particularly important because it connects those two issues. Yeah.
Dr. Munir, we have another question.
Can I also?
Yes, please.
If you allow me, because I saw that there is also another question.
I have a reply from Krista, and then we look at the second question.
Yeah, I actually suggested I sort of partly also react to the second question, because this is also about the sort of intangible heritage and knowledge and skills, and how formal and informal education can be maintained and contribute to safeguarding both forms of heritage. And I wanted to just briefly mention, because I said that UNESCO's approach in emergencies is very much a kind of comprehensive approach, and we now draw on all our conventions in the field of culture, tangible and intangible, but also education, of course. And this is particularly the case, for instance, in Yemen and Iraq. UNESCO has a major initiative of building back or reviving the spirits of Mosul in Iraq. And this is interesting because this city was recognized as a hub of the diversity of cultural expressions. And when it was really razed down, not only did we lose tangible heritage, but also the traditions and intangible cultural heritage that existed there. And that's why our efforts to reconstruct Mosul not only pertain to building back the mosques and churches, but also we very much engage the local communities and especially young people to actually teach them the knowledge and skills about the traditional way of constructing buildings. So we engage them in the reconstruction effort. And we also, of course, put an emphasis on the intangible cultural heritage and the revival of the cultural life that existed in Mosul by reintroducing and supporting, for instance, a festival, so that we really recognize the importance of intangible cultural heritage and educational aspects, as I said, through these community engagements in the reconstruction of the city. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Krista, for this very important contribution and concrete examples. As you know, I am going to Mosul every 6 months, and I can confirm that the life is changing. It's not only, as you said very rightly, the reconstruction, which is already finished for one church, the Clock Church, where the people are already praying. We saw yesterday a video with our colleague Maria Rita Acetoso, who is the architect in charge. That we have seen also on the spot the young generation, the young Mosuli people from Mosul, constituting an association, cultural association, and dealing with all these aspects of cultural life. Jorge, I think you wanted to say something. You opened your...
Yeah. Very brief. I think that one of now on the main topics being discussed here in the region is to try to seek for compensation for oil and mining transnational corporations by investing in sacred indigenous land under the ground of human rights breaching. And then if we achieve this kind of things, then I think we have achieved a lot, and we try to hinder and protect really the environment and of course the intangible cultural heritage in our indigenous communities.
Thank you, Professor Matthias. A final word after what you have listened from the other regions. And of course, as you can imagine, for us, Priority Africa is one of our sector of UNESCO. And as I said, we are going to organize here in Bahrain a meeting between African experts and Arab experts at the Arab Regional Center for World Heritage. Professor Matthias.
Question, Dr. Munir. We have a final question from Mohammed from the Heritage Commission, Ministry of Culture in Saudi Arabia. I think he was mentioning the fact that there is no mention in UNESCO conventions on, I think he was intangible and tangible heritage link in terms of crisis. I think he has deleted the question now, but I think it was there a few moments ago.
There is a mention actually in the 2003 convention on intangible cultural heritage, also of emergencies, and I've sent to him the response to the link to the convention. So I hope that I answered the question. Thank you.
And this convention is becoming very, very popular. It has already more than 160 countries party to the convention of 2003, and this shows with examples that Krista will give in writing, that UNESCO is really doing a lot for disseminating the importance of intangible heritage at all levels and in taking into account all the diversity of cultures that exist. The final word, Anna, Professor Anna.
No, I'm very grateful to you, Professor Bushnaki, and also to Sheikh Ibrahim for, as I said again, doing this at the last minute. I'm very, very grateful so that people become aware of the work of the new UniTwin network and our initiatives, and hopefully that we will assist, as I said, Madame Picat and her team in their work in Paris.
Yes, thank you. Alicia, do you want to say any final word before?
I would like just to second Anna. Yes, and perhaps let's consider giving a statement during the conference next week, because perhaps as an intervention it will be still optional and for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to say to all of you, thank you very much for having contributed to this very interesting debate with a lot of avenues that you have developed. And what I hope that this is not the end of our conversation. I think we have to continue and then to enter into the points that you have said, how to establish basic documentation, how to establish a matrix of potential donors, how to engage all the networks, etc. We have a number of points very, very important that will contribute to the reply that communities are waiting from all of us, from all our institutions. Thank you so much, and have a good day and or a good night. I don't know what time is it in Australia. And
thank
also,
you.
Thank you so much.
You are in the middle of the night.
Thank you very much, Munir.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Anna, Alicia.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much. Shukran, Sheikh Ibrahim. Muchas gracias, Jorge. I don't know how to say thank you in Polish.
Dziękuję.
Dziękuję. I remember I knew it in Krakow during the World Heritage Committee, and now I know. And
now it's back. Thank
Professor
you.
Matthias, how do you say it?
In Kiswahili, you say
Kiswahili.
Asante sana. Thank you very much.
Asante sana. Thank you. Thank you, and goodbye for all.
Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.